have set that seem to be fallen by the wayside, but just looking at how to set a goal that gets you excited so you don't lose your motivation, and you stay motivated and accountable until you've actually achieved them. So, why the old method of goal setting always fails? Setting goals sometimes, according to depending on what the goal is set depending on what you feel like you should do. So following other people's expectations rather than what you really want. An example, a funny example, can even include something like going out at the weekends and drinking because maybe it's more fun according to your partner. Maybe that's not your goal, but it becomes like, oh, we're going to go out and have fun, go out for dinners, and maybe that's not actually what you want to do. Another example at the moment that I see all the time is people doing high rocks because everyone else is doing it. So it becomes that thing that you do. So those are the kind of examples of setting goals based on what you feel like you should be doing. You know, a typical one when you're younger is also following a career path that you don't really want to do. Um, a really typical one in terms of our community, the Kickass Midlife Method community, is focusing on outcome, not income, focusing on outcome. So fixating on that end goal rather than enjoying the journey. So, for example, losing X amount of weight or putting on X amount of muscle mass or trying to lose X amount of centimeters of your waist and feeling miserable every time you haven't reached that figure, every time you sit on the scales thinking, oh God, it's all just a waste of time, rather than potentially focusing on the process of the journey and that progress. And then another major one is lacking emotional connection with your goals. You know, if you don't feel them, then it's really hard to inspire motivation to actually want to do them. So I want you to just take a moment. I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to write down a goal based on either what somebody think you should do, or a goal based where you've really felt like you've fixated on the outcome, and you've forgotten about thinking about the process. So just a minute to write that down. I'm just going to time you. I'm not going to give you that long to do it. You might be very clear in your head anyway. Try not to overthink it. Just like write the first thing kind of that comes to your head about that kind of thing. You know, I, for instance, as an example, can sometimes, particularly around marathon training, fixate on the goal and end up just thinking, oh my God, when is this race going to be here? That's not the case actually with Tokyo. I had a really good training block and I really enjoyed the process. But in the past, Berlin Marathon, for instance, it was my third in a year, or maybe second in a year. I'd got a really good time the first one, and Berlin Marathon was all about trying to improve my time. And I didn't enjoy the training at all because I was so fixated on that end goal. Okay, so we're going to move on. So I'm going to come back and ask you about that kind of thing. Let me get this out of the way. I don't know whether you can see that. Oops. So reframing goals to spark excitement. So instead of, there's my timer, instead of I want to lose 10 pounds. Sorry, my slide's got a bit gone a bit strange there in that design. Instead of, for instance, I want to lose 10 pounds, try I want to feel strong, confident, and energized so I can run, hike, and travel without limits. So now, again, another minute, rewrite a past goal in a way that truly excites you. So for me, I've just been to Japan and it really brought home to me the importance of strength training. You know, I was going up steep stairs to visit temples, and I was watching old guys having to be helped down. And it reminded me of going to Cambodia, where I went to a particular temple where the steps were really steep and really narrow. And I suddenly thought, God, I really want to be able to do that in 10 years' time. I was heaving massive suitcases around onto the bullet trains and the trains, and they're not actually slide on. You have to like lift your stuff on and off. So it again made me think, if I don't keep up my strength, those kind of things are going to be much harder, even by the age of 60. It's not that long away. So it's really important to keep up that strength. So if you've done that, rewritten a goal, past goal that truly excites you, we'll move on. So the why power. So finding your motivation. So if you're unsure about what your goal is at the moment, let's start with that goal. So I want you to write it down really clearly. And then I want you to write down 3 things about why you want this goal. What is it about the goals? Don't overthink it again. It's really easy to be like, oh no, I can't write that. Oh, I'm not sure whether that's right. And often the thing that comes first to mind, even if it sounds really cheesy, is often got a kernel of truth, or is the whole truth. So again, don't overthink it. As I was saying, then I want you to ask yourself, like, why is that important? Keep asking yourself and try and dig a little bit deeper rather than just going on this surface goal, because until you find that kind of deep motivation and that kind of feeling behind it, it becomes difficult to adhere to. So you want to discover your true motivation and why. What's your powerful why as to why it's important to you? And making sure you write it down, because it sticks a little bit more in your head. And if you write it down, you can maybe tear it out and keep it somewhere so you can keep referring to it. Because in the general day-to-day rush of life, we forget. We forget what it is. Maybe we don't forget the goal, but we forget why it's so important to us. And therefore, we let it slide because there's so many other competing things going on in our brain that it's easy to push it to one side. And then it takes 10 years to achieve that thing. So I'll give you an example from myself that I went into journalism because I wanted to write. Journalism wasn't quite the writing I meant. And it's taken me this long and this many years of it knocking about in the back of my head about writing. And so like 2 years ago, I started writing a book, and which manuscript's finished. So having it clear in your head, written down somewhere, and the why of that really helps. Okay, we're going to move on now, if you've got that written down. This is a big one, I think. I don't know how many of you give me a 2 in the chat box. Um, Suffer from this, overcoming the kind of is it worth it syndrome, getting to that point where you think, oh, I can't be asked. Is it actually worth it? Do I really want this? Does that resonate? Give me a 2. If it doesn't, give me a 3 in the chat box. Just put 2 or 3. So 2 if this resonates, where you think, oh, I can't be bothered. I'm not sure it's worth it anymore, which often happens in midlife as well. 3 if not, yeah, 2, yeah. So sorry about my typos there again as well. I'm not sure what's happening there. So, our foundations, our previous attempts help build your knowledge base. So rather than thinking if you've had a goal in the past, and this can typically be one around weight loss for many people, and you don't achieve that weight loss, you feel like, oh, I can't do it. I'm a failure. Actually, if you change that thinking to think previous attempts are building your knowledge base. So for me, my marathon, for instance, referring back to my Tokyo marathon, I was 10 minutes slower than what I'd planned. And for me, it's been that's not a failure. I've just looked back at my training and built and understood why I didn't get that. And it will help me with my New York marathon. Yeah, so learning, so building the foundation and then learning that every lesson is a setback. It's not a failure. It's giving you the chance, the opportunity to learn. So your next step is your adjustment. So changing your approach based on the lessons you learned, rather than just being like, oh, I'll just chuck it all out. I'm a failure. I can't do this. It's not worth it. I'm just too tired. I'm too fatigued. Got too much going on. It's too much effort. I'm just going to forget it. And celebrate. The top of that pyramid is to celebrate each attempt. as a growth opportunity. So take this couple minutes, just take the next couple of minutes as a chance to write down any lessons that you can learn from a past goal that you've not achieved. So for instance, I'm just thinking of clients in the past who might not have achieved a kind of a weight loss goal or a muscle mass goal in the past. Probably it was to do with the processes that were not in place and having lots of work, overcrowding their prioritizing themselves. So it's not that they couldn't do it, it's just about shifting a few things, reprioritizing and giving and setting the processes up in place. So that could be an example. I've had people not achieve their what they're capable of in races, for instance. And again, that can just be because they've missed maybe a couple of runs that they think, oh, those easy runs aren't important, so I'll miss them. I'll just do the long runs because I'm short on time. When actually, all of the runs are really important. So that's another example, very specific example. So just giving you some ideas. So another 40 seconds to finish off writing about what lesson you've learned. And it could apply to anything. It might not apply to something within this program itself. It could be even something to do with your work or career, anything that's kind of relevant. Okay, and then we're going to move on. And then this is an idea of how you can set aligned, achievable goals with this kind of formula, the 3P formula, I call it. So rather than, and I see this a lot sometimes with people who I have conversations with on Instagram who think about coming on the program, and they can talk themselves out of it, and they can put this whole stream of like, well, I've got this and I've got that, and I don't know whether I can do it because I've got this and that and that. And actually what's happening is we're allowing all the negative, the aspects of doing something to get in the way of focusing on what you'll gain. So think about that as well. So whatever goal you've got, rather than setting yourself up and thinking, oh, well, I can't do that, and that's going to blah, 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 and that's going to be too hard. Focus on what you'll gain from it, not lose. So when we were like kids, for instance, in our 20s, we'd often barrel into something. You wouldn't actually think about the consequences. You just do it and you'd learn by the lessons afterwards. And there's something around that that I think would be nice for us to re-adopt our 20-year-old selves, where we would just barrel into something and learn very quickly and just do it. So personal as well. It must light you up. It's got to be something that is really important to you. It's not something that's important because your partner wants you to do it, or it's important to your kids, or important for your work or your boss. It's got to be personal to you, something that really excites you. And then process driven. So the daily actions, and I talk about this a lot, almost every meeting that we have, matter more than the big end result. So taking those daily small actions add up to massive changes, and whatever your goal is, whether it is learning a language, losing weight, running a marathon, building muscle, it's those small actions, and committing to those makes the biggest difference. So another couple of minutes, just rewrite if you can, thinking about rewriting your goal using that formula. So I'll give you a couple of minutes to do that. Just set my timer again because I'm terrible at. I'm really good at timing without having a timer when it comes to exercise and telling people they've got X amount of time left, but I'm not so good on this. So I'll give you, I'll put the timer on for that. So just write anything down, because you'll find often there will be something, if you're struggling, there will be something in that you write down that will be relevant or that has something in it that will be useful. You've got 90 seconds left. So 1 more minute. And then we'll move on. So creating an action plan that feels easy and exciting. Again, write it down. So for instance, for anybody on the program who might be struggling with exercising. So I often don't do workouts 5 times a week. But if there's, something one week where you're like, oh God, I'm really struggling to do this, rather than thinking about the workouts, I will do these workouts, just think I'm going to actually exercise for 10 minutes instead. Start the workout that's been written down for you. If you can't finish it, it doesn't matter. It's actually the commitment of doing something that makes a difference. Instead of I'll cut out all sugar, for instance, I'll drink more water first is a better way of doing it. Um, and instead of I'll write a book, I'll write 100 words every morning. So it's those kind of things, those small actions that you can take that make the difference to the overall result and that ability to stick to a goal and for it to excite you. So staying accountable and motivated, these are the kind of the three things, ideas that you could do. So you could find within the Kickass community, for instance, you could find a goal buddy that someone within your group maybe that you can choose to check in with weekly. So share your wins and challenges. Obviously, we do that in the group anyway, but if you are someone that you feel works better one-to-one with people, then you could decide to find a goal buddy. If you want help with that, to find someone who's like similar to you in terms of their goals, then let me know and I can help pair you up and see if there's someone who wants to do that. So tracking your progress creatively. So you can use a colourful habit tracker journal to monitor your journey. For obviously in the app, we do that anyway. You've got those methods to track your progress in terms of your photos. And I can't emphasize enough how much the photographs make a difference and help really motivate and inspire you because you will see the difference potentially quicker than you'll see the stats or your biometrics changing. And then visualization, spending 2 minutes every morning, like imagining your future self and enjoying those results. I don't know whether any of you do any visualization stuff, but that can be a helpful thing in the morning and to remind yourself of the goal and where you're getting to each time in the busy rush of life.